This is Elon Musk, the engineer and designer behind the world's first fully electric production vehicle, the Tesla Roadster. And this is Martin Eberhard, the engineer and designer behind the world's first fully electric production vehicle, the Tesla Roadster. So, would the real founder of Tesla Motors please stand up? Here are two men offering very different accounts of the story behind Tesla's early success, and while they both obviously can't be right, they both can't be wrong either. We know that winners write the history books, but that doesn't mean that they're always telling the truth. And that's exactly what we are in search of today: the true story behind the first Tesla Roadster. During an interview in June of 2022, Elon Musk laid out his definitive version of events around the founding of Tesla Motors, up through the engineering and release of the company's first Roadster vehicle. Elon's key message here was that everything you think you know about how Tesla was founded is wrong. In Elon's mind, he became the reluctant leader who pulled the company back from the brink of ruin, rescuing Tesla from its own incompetent and clueless co-founders.
I wish I had never met Martin Eberhard. And he's the worst person I have ever worked with, and that is saying something.
While those same founders would consider Musk as nothing more than the wealthy investor who swooped in and stole the company right out from underneath them. So, we've got two contradicting perspectives on one of the greatest tech stories of the 21st century. So let's try and break it down. The year was 2003. There was a lot going on in the world at this time. The United States military had just begun their second war in 2 years, with active combat in the Middle East spreading from Afghanistan to Iraq. The fallout of this instability in the Arab world led to massive increases in the price of crude oil, which in turn led to record high gasoline prices here at home. Ironically, this was also the year that General Motors attempted to kill the electric car. This is the EV1, America's first electric car. If we travel back one more decade to the mid-1990s, GM had this incredible idea to make a new car that was powered entirely by batteries and an electric motor. The car was so revolutionary at the time that it actually created a massive problem for GM and every other American automaker that no one involved had seen coming. Basically, the government of California saw what GM was doing and decided that if it was now possible to make a fully electric car, then this is obviously the only type of car that everyone should be making from now on. So, California passed a new zero-emissions vehicle mandate that said any U.S. automaker selling cars in California would be required to make a certain percentage of their vehicle fleet zero emissions, and if any of them refused to make electric cars, they wouldn't be allowed to sell any cars at all in California. In case you're not familiar, California has long maintained the title of most populated state in the union, so losing access to that market could be the death sentence to a car maker. So pretty much as quickly as GM had inspired this new mandate, they started making moves to kill it off, and they weren't afraid to take their own EV1 down along with the regulations. Ultimately, GM was successful in killing the electric car that they had created, and by 1999, GM had ended production of the EV1 permanently. By 2002, California had revised their mandates to drop the requirements for fully electric vehicles and replace that terminology with partially zero-emission vehicles, which are still powered by gasoline engines but have a more robust set of emissions control systems and smog reduction. By 2003, GM had made the final move to repossess their entire fleet of EV1 vehicles. Since the car was never sold outright and only leased, the company was able to take the cars back, whether the owner liked it or not. The entire stock of EV1s ended up being sent to a junkyard and crushed into a big pile of scrap metal. It was at this point in time that a recently divorced, middle-aged man named Martin Eberhard went shopping for a new sports car. Martin Eberhard is an electrical engineer who built a fortune in the late 1990s by designing and selling e-readers with his business partner Mark Tarpenning. Their product, the Rocket Book, was actually the first commercially available electronic book, and it was 10 years ahead of the Kindle, which came out in 2007. Martin and Mark sold their company to TV Guide for $187 million in the year 2000, giving the duo the luxury of time and funding to work on their next passion project. Of course, not before Martin would indulge in a brand new sports car to satisfy his midlife crisis. But Martin was disappointed with the options available at the time. Supercars were terribly inefficient, meaning they burned a lot of gasoline and created a lot of air pollution, and this was the time when people were really starting to become aware about climate change. Al Gore was preaching the dangers of global warming, and that newfound panic became a Hollywood blockbuster called The Day After Tomorrow, where climate change happens overnight and destroys the entire world. Not wanting to contribute to the growing climate crisis, Martin was in search of an electric vehicle, but struggled to find anything that offered the excitement of a sports car until he discovered a small company named AC Propulsion. AC had their own electric sports car called the T-Zero. Now, it wasn't much of a car, it was more like a big homemade go-kart, just a frame with a fiberglass shell, seats, headlights, and really not much else. It was unsafe, uncomfortable, totally impractical, but it was fully electric, and it was fast as hell, nailing 0 to 60 in 4 seconds or less. Martin even invested some of his own money into AC Propulsion to help them develop an updated version of the T-Zero with the latest lithium-ion battery technology, giving it significantly longer driving range than the old lead-acid battery system. As impractical as it was, Eberhard decided to drive the lithium-ion T-Zero with its 300-mile range every day for 3 months in a crusade to prove the legitimacy of the electric car. But the biggest problem with the T-Zero was that it was fully made by hand, and AC Propulsion wasn't interested in trying to commercialize the product into something that could be manufactured at high volume. So, the big idea for Martin and Mark was taking the battery and AC motor system from the T-Zero and dropping that into a traditional sports car chassis. Because the heart of an electric car is essentially computers, batteries, and motors. This was all possible to make in Silicon Valley, but the car side of things was a bit more complicated. So what the pair thought they needed was a partner in the automotive industry, and this is where they found Lotus. Or, according to the story, Martin and Mark ambushed the Lotus team at an LA auto show in 2002 and pitched the executives on this idea of putting their new battery and motor technology into an existing sports car. Apparently, Lotus was interested enough to agree that if the California engineers could find the money and prove that their idea would work, then Lotus might be interested in making a car for them. On July 1st, 2003, Tesla Motors was incorporated, and the work began to create a viable prototype for the first electric vehicle. Martin and Mark had targeted Lotus as their vehicle platform because they knew that the Elise sports car was a small, lightweight, and simple design that was not so different from the T-Zero. It didn't hurt that the Elise was regarded as being one of the best handling vehicles ever made, so even after dumping 1,000 pounds of batteries into it, the Elise would still be relatively light and could stand a good chance at driving like a race car. Martin and Mark had also made a deal with AC Propulsion to license their electric motor and battery pack design from the T-Zero, so they knew that the technology could make a fast car with a long range if it could only find the right platform. Of course, the cost associated with getting a whole new car just to the prototype stage is astronomical. Even for two wealthy business partners, they were going to need a lot of help from people with deep pockets. And this is when they pitched Elon Musk on their dream for Tesla Motors. Now, according to Martin and Mark, this was not even their first encounter with Musk, because the duo were actually founding members of the Mars Society. That's a group of space nerds who are obsessed with colonizing Mars, and when the newly wealthy Musk started talking seriously about this stuff in the early 2000s, The Mars Society had found their messiah, so they apparently had Elon doing keynote speeches at Mars conventions before SpaceX was even a thing. For this fateful business meeting in 2004, Musk, Mark, and Martin were brought together by another common interest, the AC propulsion T0. All three of them had the same idea to commercialize the electric sports car concept. According to the recollection of Mark and Martin, they pitched Elon on their entire roadmap for Tesla Motors to create an exciting electric sports car that grabbed the attention of the rich and famous, then leverage that into a more accessible electric vehicle like a large SUV or sedan, and then gradually proceed down market until they were making EVs for the masses. The pitch convinces Musk to part with $7 million to fund the development of the first Tesla Roadster prototype, the first of many millions of dollars that Elon would pour into Tesla to get the company through their growing pains. And with that much-needed cash flow, Tesla would quickly deliver on the goal set out by co-founders Mark and Martin. The first Roadsters would be delivered just 4 years later, with full series production beginning in March 2008 at the Lotus factory in England. Only neither Mark nor Martin would be around to see the project through. Martin Eberhard was forcibly removed from his position as CEO of Tesla Motors in 2007. The company's board, chaired by Elon Musk, voted unanimously. Mark Tarpenning would leave his position as vice president of engineering at Tesla on his own accord in January 2008. Just as series production of the Roadster was being finalized, he considered his job done and wasn't interested in sticking around for development of the Model S sedan. By October 2008, Elon Musk moves into the role of CEO at Tesla, where he becomes the one and only public face of the company. Mark and Martin are never mentioned or acknowledged again in any official capacity by the company after this point. The Tesla Master Plan becomes Elon Musk's Master Plan, Part 1. Now, let's rewind back to our starting point in 2003. Elon Musk is having lunch with a friend named J.B. Straubel. The two are discussing lithium-ion batteries and their potential for new electric transportation. JB is a talented young engineer in Silicon Valley, and he's telling Elon about his new car company, AC Propulsion, and their T0 sports car. Elon is newly wealthy from selling his share in PayPal to eBay, and he's been spending some of that money on fast cars and hair plugs. Musk has a $1 million McLaren F1 in his garage and is daily driving a Porsche 911 Turbo, but Elon has a long-standing passion for electric vehicles. His initial reason for moving to California in the 90s was to graduate studies at Stanford University on high-energy density capacitors for use in electric vehicles. If he hadn't dropped out to join the internet revolution, that's what Elon Musk would have ended up doing with his life. So Musk arrives at AC Propulsion, asking them to build him a T0. They say no. Elon offers them $250,000 to convert his Porsche 911 into an electric car. They say no. Elon asks, "What the hell is wrong with you people? Don't you know you're sitting on a gold mine here?" And AC says they're not interested in building sports cars anymore. Their new plan is to make an electric conversion of the Toyota Scion. In case you forgot, because you probably did, this is a 2004 Toyota Scion. Elon tried to explain that no person in their right mind is going to pay $80,000 for an electric version of a square box on wheels, but they definitely would pay $100,000 for an electric supercar like his Porsche. AC tells Elon that there were two guys here before who said the exact same thing, and they gave him Martin Eberhard's number. According to Elon's recollection, he had never heard of Mark or Martin before this event, and Elon would later wish that he had never met either of them. Elon says that he could have just as easily founded a new company with JB to commercialize the T0 design, and the resulting business would have ended up being indistinguishable from the present-day Tesla. So, if that's true, then why didn't Elon found Tesla on his own? Okay, the thing to remember about Elon Musk at this time is that he's just poured the majority of his PayPal fortune into SpaceX. After failing to organize a one-off Mars mission on Russian ballistic missiles, Elon decides that the world needs an independent rocket company that will prioritize a multiplanetary future for humanity. So Elon Musk was a bit busy at the time leading the development of his first orbital rocket, the Falcon 1, which was a necessary step to earn the NASA contract that would fund the Falcon 9. But at the same time, Elon loved the idea of owning an electric car company. He believed heavily in the transition away from carbon-based fuel, but he didn't want to run an electric car company at that particular moment. If anything, he just wanted to provide the funding and work on product development, which was his real passion after all. So what Elon was hoping to find when he called up Mark and Martin was an established business in need of financial backing and maybe some engineering support. What Elon ended up with was two bumbling hippies with no product, no employees aside from a guy named Ian Wright that nobody liked, no office, no factory, and generally no clue about what the hell they were actually trying to accomplish other than stuffing AC propulsion powertrain into a Lotus Elise and hoping for the best. The only thing they brought to the table was a shell corporation that they called Tesla Motors, in spite of the fact that the trademark for that name was owned by some other guy in the US who had registered Tesla Motors a decade earlier. I guess Elon still figured that this was better than nothing, so he gave them $7 million to found an actual company. As the principal investor, Elon made himself chair of the new board of directors, and Eberhard was appointed as CEO. Mark Tarpenning was made the chief financial officer. Elon hired his friend J.B. Straubel to serve as chief technical officer and fired Ian Wright. Then Elon sent Tarpenning to go sit on the front porch of the guy who actually owned the Tesla Motors trademark until he agreed to sell it for $75,000. Then Elon went back to SpaceX, where the Falcon 1 was less than a year away from its first scheduled launch, and he left Eberhard in charge. So with that, Mark and Martin went back to Lotus and told them that they had secured the funding for the electric car project and they were ready to move forward. Lotus agreed and offered Tesla a section of their production floor in Hethel, England, where the Roadster would be manufactured alongside its sister car, the Elise. The road to the first Tesla would not be easy. It didn't take very long before Eberhard realized that you can't just fusion dance two completely different cars together and expect anything good to come out as a result. The first problem was that the AC propulsion battery pack and drive unit wouldn't fit in the engine bay of the Lotus Elise. So now they have to stretch out the rear quarter of the vehicle by 2 inches, and by doing that, now the Elise body panels won't fit. And then once they did manage to wedge the power electronics in there, that proved way too heavy for the stripped-down, nimble car to handle, so now the entire chassis geometry and suspension system of the Elise needs to be redesigned. The battery packs for the Tesla contained 7,000 lithium-ion cells and weighed 1,000 pounds each. Eberhard outsourced the manufacturing of the packs to a company in Thailand that specialized in making barbecues. They'd take cells from Japan, package them into modules, and then ship the battery units to England, where they'd be installed in the vehicles, and then the whole thing would be shipped to California. Logistically, this was a nightmare, and worst of all, the electric powertrains didn't even work properly. The AC propulsion T0 used a lithium-ion battery pack, an AC induction motor, and a 2-speed transmission to achieve a level of performance that would match even the best of Ferrari, Porsche, Lamborghini, but the T0 was more like an oversized go-kart than an actual car. So as soon as you add the weight of things like doors, trunks, air conditioners, airbags, dashboards, then all of a sudden it doesn't perform quite so well. The Tesla vehicle with the AC propulsion licensed drive units were barely hitting 0 to 60 in 6 seconds, which was still quick, but it's not quick enough to get the kind of attention that Tesla needs if they have any hope of survival. And worse yet, when Tesla engineers tried to increase the power output, the 2-speed transmissions would fail and the batteries would overheat. Mark and Martin's plan was a dud. There was just no way that the Roadster was going to become a compelling product in the state that it was in. And this is where Elon Musk comes in clutch. You see, Elon had already been contributing to the design of the Roadster. He had Lotus redesign the doors to make the car easier to get in and out of. The target market for the Elise were race car drivers. The target market for the Roadster were were Silicon Valley super nerds like Bill Gates. They were too physically awkward for the high door sills. Elon also pushed for the Roadster to have a unique look that set it apart from the Elise, using redesigned body panels with carbon fiber inserts for increased weight reduction. But things really came to a head in 2007 when Elon finally found out just how bad the numbers were on the Roadster prototypes. Elon learned that the cost to manufacture one car was up around $180,000, while the selling price started at just $98,000. When Musk confronted Eberhard, he asked if Martin knew how much the car cost to make. Martin lied and said he didn't. In August 2007, Tesla's board of directors voted unanimously to remove Eberhard from his position as CEO. Still, Elon did not want to be the person in charge of Tesla. He installed a temporary CEO named Michael Marks, who lasted all of 4 months before another CEO, Zeev Drori, was brought in. Elon liked him because he was a former Israeli paratrooper and had no fear of anything. Drori oversaw the final push to deliver the first Roadster, while Elon moved quickly to rescue their product. The biggest change that Elon made at the 11th hour before production was to vastly simplify the design and supply chain for the Roadster's power electronics. He fired the Thai barbecue company and stopped paying Lotus to install the battery packs and drive units. Elon brought all of that in-house to Tesla in California. JB Straubel redesigned the battery modules to increase their thermal management, making the batteries safer to operate and capable of higher performance. JB invented side cooling channels for cylindrical battery cells, the wavy strips that run in between rows of cells. JB designed them like that to increase the contact area with the round battery case. Tesla still uses this cooling design, and it's become industry standard for cylindrical type cells. Elon also ditched the 2-speed transmission and increased the size and power of the electric motor, another design choice that has stood the test of time. So, at this point, Lotus is just shipping over vehicle shells, and Tesla is installing their own power electronics. This not only saved on labor cost, but saved a fortune on international shipping from England by cutting over 1,000 pounds of weight from each unit. In the end, only a few interior components from Elise remained, and none of the AC propulsion technology had actually been used in the final Roadster. Eventually, Musk would cut the manufacturing cost down to around $80,000 per unit. Not a massive profit, but much better than a massive loss. Even still, Tesla did not have enough cash on hand to pay for the delivery of the first Roadsters. The year 2008 was a time period that Elon Musk remembers as a living hell. His marriage had collapsed, and both of his companies were on the verge of doing the same. Musk had $40 million remaining of what was a $165 million fortune just 6 years earlier. He put $20 million in SpaceX and $20 million in Tesla and hoped for the best, but prepared for the worst. Obviously, now we all know what happened. SpaceX reached orbit successfully with the Falcon 1 in September 2008, and Tesla successfully delivered 500 Roadsters in their first model year. Elon would continue to make incremental improvements to the Roadster through 2009 and 2010, making it even faster, better looking, and more comfortable to drive. From there, Tesla transitioned straight into the production of the Model S, and the rest is history. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, please consider supporting us directly on Patreon and hit the like button. If content like this starts to perform well for us, then we can continue to make a lot more high quality videos for you in the future.